Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I love Scream, but I wish it was a rom-com? Well then, boy, do we have a movie for you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We just saw Hard Eyes, and we have to talk about it because we're off to a pretty solid start for surprisingly horror movies in 2025.
I know, because we've had Wolfman, which we thought was pretty solid.
Pretty decent.
And then Companion blew
Fantastic.
us away. And now we've got Hard Eyes, and we have quite a few things to say about it.
Yeah, and they're all three of them very different films. Obviously, monster movie, very dark comedy, and now you have a slasher movie that really plays with the concept of the slasher genre and fuses it with romantic comedy, because that's really what this movie is. It's essentially Scream, but where Scream satirized the slasher genre as a whole, Hard Eyes is satirizing the romantic comedy genre using the slasher genre, which I think is absolutely brilliant.
You really get a lot of the tropes associated with both slasher movies and with rom-coms.
Yes.
And honestly, it really packs a punch during the humorous moments, but also the scares.
Yeah, it succeeds in the same places that the original Scream succeeds in, because Scream satirizes slasher movies and horror films in general, while also being one of the best slasher movies and horror films of all time. To its credit, Hard Eyes satirizes the romantic comedy genre while also being a very, very good romantic comedy. So I think that's really the true mark of a fantastic slasher satirical film, is that you are able to take the thing that you are making fun of and still being a good version of that.
Yes, absolutely. And a big thing that stuck out to me with this film, especially compared to Companion, which we also saw recently, that was a movie that I think felt very grounded, had a very specific message it was trying to convey.
Yeah.
This movie, in comparison, it's very exaggerated. The tone is very hyper-realized, and it works within the context of this movie, and I think plays well to the humor it's trying to convey.
Absolutely. It's, like you said, the tone is all over the place. It's insane. The comedy in this film, it is absolutely insane. It's my type of comedy. It's outrageous. It never takes its foot off the gas, ever.
No.
Like, the jokes never stop ramping up as the movie goes on, and they never stop getting more insane either.
No.
Like, there's some really interesting choices in here that we'll talk about later, but you can't really have a romantic comedy movie without a couple to root for. And I think a large part of the success of this film rests in the hands of Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. Olivia is just an absolute force in this movie.
I am so excited for her because I'm very nostalgic for her from her Disney Channel days. And between this movie and another recent horror flick that I love, Totally Killer, I'm excited to see become a Scream Queen.
She's a new Scream Queen. And of course, I know her from Cloak and Dagger because it's part of the brand. But she is so fantastic in this. And I think she's always been good in everything that she does. And I hope that she really starts to get more roles after this film, because she really is a commanding force on the screen, and her chemistry with Mason Gooding is fantastic. And I think also her performance in general, even in the scenes where she's alone, is really, really good. And she's a huge standout of this movie if it does have one.
Yeah, and I think that's really saying something, because like we said, they include a lot of tropes from rom-coms and slashers in this.
Yeah.
And she is very much that stereotypical rom-com lead. She's young, she's trying to succeed in her career path and find love. But there's something about her performance that feels so earnest and sweet and relatable. And honestly, I just believe everything about this character.
You feel like she's real. It's such a believable character because it's such a believable performance. She makes you believe everything she's saying and everything she does. And she's somehow able to ground this character that doesn't feel like a grounded character. Her performance is able to bring her down and give her a sense of reality that I don't think many other actresses could have done in that role.
Well, and I think what works is because, like I said, a lot of the movie is exaggerated with the way that kind of portrays what's going on, the way people talk. It's satirizing the way people would act in this situation. And I think she plays with that really well in the fact that she feels grounded, but she also doesn't feel out of place.
Yeah, and I think to pair with her, you have a Mason Gooding who has come off to talk about Scream Queens. He's becoming a Scream King, if I do say so myself. Two really solid performances in the past two Scream movies. He was the heart of essentially Scream 6. We fell in love with his version of Chad, the only version of Chad. But I think that his performance in here, he gets to show off his comedic chops and his comedic timing, which I think is something he really excels at in this movie. We already know he's charming. We already know he's likable, and he brings those qualities to this film as well. But he also gets to be a little bit more of a leading man. He also gets to be a little bit more of that romantic lead, and he gets to definitely stretch his comedy chops as well. I think another interesting thing about this movie is that it is written in part by, there are 3 writers, one of which being Christopher Landon, and I am a huge fan of his work, especially in the 2 Happy Death Day movies, which are huge favorites of mine. I love them. Make Happy Death Day 3, Blumhouse, do it. But I definitely could feel his influence on the script and the writing in the movie. Directed by College Humor alum Josh Rubin, which is really hilarious to me because I loved College Humor growing up and I have friends who love College Humor even to this day. He did fantastic work. I watched Werewolves Within. I didn't even realize he directed that until after the fact. Really loved that movie. So to see him kind of come into this and swing and hit one out of the park, really impressive stuff by him. And I think he has a really bright future in the horror genre because, man, he really killed it with this movie.
Having now seen who was involved in the making and writing of this film, it makes so much sense where a lot of these humorous beats come from, especially with Happy Death Day, because they're both very punchy, they're very topical, and they just work so well within the tones that they're trying to convey.
Yeah, and this movie has a lot of very cool visuals. For one, I think the killer's mask is fantastic. I love the Hard Eyes mask. I love the overall aesthetic of the Hard Eyes killer, down from the weaponry that the killer uses to the overall outfit choices. And we have some really fun kills in here. So not only does it function as a very good romantic comedy, it also functions as a very good slasher movie. So if you're a fan of either of those genres, this is the perfect match for you. And for all those horror couples out there, this is the perfect Valentine's Day movie.
Absolutely. I will say I think you and I agree on this, the one kind of drawback with this as a slasher is the mystery aspect with it. Because I think where the movie really succeeds with playing with the tropes of slashers and rom-coms, it's like hitting it out of the park until I would say kind of close to the end, especially when we get to the reveal itself, because it just kind of feels like it was almost tacked on a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the reveal is the weakest part of this movie, and to the movie's credit, I don't think it was built around the reveal. I just think it has a reveal because slasher movies have to have reveals. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge problem because the Hard Eyes Killer has such a fantastic aura. He has such a fantastic presence and design that throughout the movie works wonderfully as a horror villain. But once the unmasking happens, you lose all sense of that. And it kind of cheapens the effect of the killer once you do get that reveal. But the movie is not really structured around that. The movie's structured around this core will they, won't they rom-com relationship. So in the long run, in the grand scheme of the film, it doesn't really hurt that much. And I will say that when the killer is doing its stalking, preying thing, really works very well.
I agree. I think the actual scenes with the kills and with the Hard Eyes Killer themselves are very effective. Some of the kills are very interesting and very unique in the way that they're shot and what they do with their victims. That's really exhilarating. So while it does take the wind out a bit, it definitely doesn't damage the film.
Yeah, especially because they do such a fantastic job of building the world in the beginning. Like, as this rom-com is happening, we get these fun little news reports, magazines, different sprinklings of information as we're kind of like doing your typical rom-com, like, oh, we're doing a clothing montage and like fun stuff. But as that's going on, you see like news reports in the background about how the HEK, as they call him, is striking and how he's been around for 2 years, and all of these really fantastical bits of world building that really help to add to the effect and punch of this movie.
Absolutely. And another big thing that I want to give credit to regarding the killer is this wonderful scene where they play with one of the tropes of slashers and with reveals. I don't want to say what it is, but it's definitely one of the best parts of the movie that really show the thoughtfulness that was put into the script.
Absolutely. And I have to give a huge shout out to Devon Sawa, horror legend Devon Sawa. He's been a part of the Final Destination franchises and Chucky franchises, amongst other things. But he is here and he plays a detective and he gives it 150%. I don't know what he's doing or why he's doing it, but I could not take my eyes off of him. He is magnificent. He's funny. He's charismatic. I love him. I love seeing him in this.
Would you say you have hard eyes for him?
Oh, I do. Big time, baby. He's so great. But Nikki, with that being said, on a scale of 1 to 5 Hard Eyes masks, what would you rate Hard Eyes?
Like I said, I had a blast with this movie. It was super fun. Like I said, the climax and the reveal take a little bit of the wind out of it for me. And while I think it's very funny, there are a few jokes I think are just maybe a bit too cute at times. But overall, I really liked it. I think it's a very solid rom-com and slasher. So I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5.
Interesting. I'm a huge fan of the slasher genre. I especially love very meta, very satirical slasher movies. So this movie really hits all of the points for me. I really love the cast, the two main leads especially. I love the Hard Eyes killer design. I love the kills. I think it functions extremely well as both a slasher film in the truest sense as well as a romantic comedy. So for that, I'm giving Hard Eyes 4 out of 5 Hard Eyes. I think you guys should check it out, especially if you are horror-loving Valentine's Day celebrators. Take your date and go see Hard Eyes when it comes out next week. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you want to check out our other reviews, click the link on the page. And until next time, guys, stay versed.